I hope I'll be able to send you away with some good information today. We've made a lot of changes in the department. I don't know that we've made a lot of law changes, but we've made ourselves a lot more available to you in the kind of the electronic age. And I'm going to show you a little bit of that. Of course, you know, we just started in our new certification period, and you know, it's a 3-year period, and that runs from October the 21st, 2011. The next time we'll need to be recertified will be in 2014. And these are the points that you have to occur within that 3-year period. Of course, in your categories 3 and 6, which we're talking about today, it's the maximum 18 points during that period of time, which is typically 1 point per hour of instruction. Now, a lot of people want to check their points. Well, you can check your points online now. You know, everybody's got a smartphone. I don't, because I'm not that smart, but you can simply, you know, Google Tennessee Department of Agriculture, Regulatory Services, and you will come to this web page. And then on the left-hand side, you simply click on Pesticides and Ag Inputs. And then at the bottom, you'll click on Online Pesticide Systems. And then on the right-hand side, you'll click on Commercial Applicator Points. And then you can search by your name, your last name, or you can search by your PIN number that you have. And once you put your PIN number in there, it'll pull up a list of people that match that, either that last name, or it'll pull up your PIN number there highlighted. And there you go. And it'll show all the schools that you've gone to and how many points that you've incurred. It's good to check on that from time to time, because sometimes maybe you didn't get your points out of school. Of course, the Department of Nashville is going to say it's because they couldn't read your handwriting. But you know, sometimes there are errors made. You know, everybody's not fallible, so it's good to check on this from time to time. We have online registration. If they had a computer out there, and as you came up and you registered it, they entered your name and all your information in real time, it would go into Nashville, and in the morning at 8 o'clock, your points would be on our books and in our computer system. Okay, sorry. Now, I'm sure Bob wants me to really stress this, and I will. We no longer give the certification test here at this facility. We don't have the Department of Agriculture, back during the budget crunches several years ago, we discontinued having an office here in Jackson, which I'm really sorry about that, but that was above my pay grade. And now we have a contract with Jackson State Community College, and that's where the certification test is given. So if you're interested in taking the certification test, you can contact our office at 615-837-5148, or get an application online, and you can order study materials also by calling Knoxville or visiting that particular website. And then once you get registered, then they will send you a testing number and a date that you'll go to Jackson State to take that examination. Now, for y'all that do have a license, we do have, especially during certification, when certification periods expire, we have a problem with licensees not obtaining enough points to maintain their certification. Well, in order to maintain your license with us, you have to maintain your certification. So it really can affect, your business. If you're a sole licensee of your business and you haven't acquired the 18 points that you need to renew your certification, your license becomes invalid. Therefore, your charter becomes invalid. And you're out of business until you pass the certification test. And unfortunately, usually a month or two after the certification period is expired, we're out there putting what we call stop work orders on companies. And that only affects you, it affects your employees too. And the law says that when your charter becomes inactive because the licensee is not in charge anymore, and if he's not certified, he's not in charge anymore, your charter is automatically suspended. You don't have to go through any kind of process, any kind of hearing process or anything. It's automatically suspended. And that means that you can't do any kind of application. You can't sell any pesticide applications, and you can't make any pesticide applications without being in violation of the law. Now, this is one thing that has changed, I guess, since we have talked the last time. The definition of what under the direct supervision is. And over the past 6 or 7 years, it meant that a licensee of a company had to be within a 120-mile radius of any of his technicians that work for him, any of his certified technicians that work for him. Now, I have my opinions of why that was put in initially. And, it has to do with business decisions between folks. And understand that the department really doesn't submit legislation. And we may suggest rule changes, but as far as law changes, those law changes come from the industry and have to be sponsored by somebody from the industry. They're not sponsored directly by the Department of Agriculture. So the industry put this 120-mile radius in there. Well, it was kind of like the guys in Memphis didn't want the guys from Nashville coming to Memphis and sending their people to Memphis, and vice versa. And that 120-mile radius kind of took care of that. Because if the licensee was in Memphis, his people couldn't work in Nashville. Well, that since, in the last year, has been taken out. There is no 120-mile radius limitation anymore. So if you have a company in Memphis or in Jackson, and you want to send one of your certified technicians to Nashville to do work, they can do that. And that's because we're more in an advanced stage now. We have direct communication with our employees by cell phone, where we didn't used to. The best we used to have was radio control most. And this has changed something. It kind of looks ominous when you look at it, but we've always charged late fees, of course. In order to have a charter and a license and certification, it costs $200 a year for a charter, $40 for a license, and $20 a year for a certified technician. And that comes renewed every 2 years. And we're in the renewal period now, A through K, I believe. Used to be that we gave a 30-day grace period. In other words, if your charter's expired December the 31st of 2012, you had 30 days in order to pay your charter fees before your charter became, or license became inactive. And if you didn't pay by January the 31st, then we started charging a $10 a day penalty for every day that you were late. Well, that can really add up fast. So now they have changed that, and even though this looks very complicated, it's a whole lot less money to be paid if you're late. And now you have to pay by January the 15th instead of January the 31st. So there's only a 15-day grace period, so to speak. And if you hadn't paid by the 15th, then they add 5% of the total balance that you owe. And then if you hadn't paid by February the 1st, they add another 5%. And then on top of that, they charge 5.25% interest. I know it's complicated, but it works out to be a whole lot less money than the $10 a day does. That slide kind of shows that. But anyway, it works out, if you were 30 days late, before you were paying $300 penalty. If you're 30 days late now, it works out to about $75. Okay, limited herbicide applicator license. How many in here have one? Anybody have a LHA license, or you just do glyphosate only? We probably got about 100 of these across the state. And it's a little lower category than an HLT license or a right-of-way license. What it requires is that you take a certification test, and that certification test specifically goes on the ability of a person to read a label and understand a pesticide label, and to be able to read a glyphosate label and understand what it means. And then you have to have $300,000 worth of liability insurance, which most companies have a lot more than that. And the vehicles have to have the certification PIN number displayed on them. The person that holds that license within that company can't supervise any uncertified applicators. That person with that limited license is the only one that can apply within that company. You can't advertise any spraying services. You can't advertise chemical weed control if you have a LHA. You don't have to have an HLT license, and there's no charter required. Now, I want to show you a few things that are available through the department now. And you can get this newsletter online, and it's free. There is a charge for it if it's hard copy, but most everybody has computer access, and they'll send you this once a month, and it kind of tells what's going on with the department and any legislation that's coming up, or you see in the far right, bottom right corner over there, where if we're having some kind of problem with some kind of insect that's coming into Tennessee that we're trying to control, we'll talk about that. Talk about personnel within the department or anything new that's coming about. We also have a publication called the Registration Review, and it's free online. And it has a lot of information. It has general PCO information, testing locations and dates. It lists the upcoming schools where you can get your certification points. Any new products that have been registered with us. In the state of Tennessee, every pesticide that's sold, and when I say pesticides, I mean insecticides, herbicides, it's just a generic word for all of them, pesticides. And we charge $100 a product for the companies to register their pesticides in the state. And we have over 15,000 registered pesticides in the state. And that money that we collect for that registration helps to fund the Department of Agriculture's regulatory areas. Department of Agriculture is kind of one of the only self-supporting state agencies that we have. The money that we collect from you as far as charters and licenses and product registrations and such goes to fund everything we do in the pesticides and ag input section. It'll talk about any label changes that have been filed with the EPA. It'll list any law and reg changes. It'll tell you any new companies that are in your area that have come into business. So you'll know who your new competitors are. Any changes in charters. If the licensee moves from one company to another, that information is in this document. I'll also give you study material sources. It's free online by just going to that website, or you can get a hard copy sent to you for $12 a year. It's a really informative document. Now, what I thought I'd do is kind of give a year in review. Our year, since we are under contract with the federal government, my inspectors are federal agents just like they're state agents. We work for the EPA. In the state of Tennessee, the Department of Agriculture carries out the functions of the EPA in regard to pesticides. You don't really have any federal people in the state of Tennessee that are inspecting anything as far as pesticides go. So because of our reporting in our contract agreement, our fiscal year runs from October 1 through September the 30th, and that's what this reporting will show. Now, of course, we have complaints that are filed against companies that do lawn care and do pesticide applications on lawns. But within the lawn care industry and the rifleman industry, we have very few. And that's a credit to y'all's industry, because y'all says you take care, if you got a problem, you take care of it yourself. We had 4 complaints that were filed. And of course, they resulted in 4 violations. We did 114 routine inspections. That's where we came to your company, reviewed your records, reviewed your application methods and such. And those 114, 27 of those, we found violations. But I'll show in a little while what those were, kind of. But they were really minor violations. You know, of course, the biggest violation we look at is when you misuse a pesticide. And we had very few of those. Now, we contacted 17 with your help. I mean, you have more eyes out in the field than we do. So if you see somebody that's out there applying pesticide on somebody's yard and they're not licensed and chartered, you know, we depend upon y'all to help us, because you have a lot more eyes out there than I do. And all I simply need to know is an address of where that property is and a license plate number of that vehicle, and then we'll go from there. Our procedure is that when we find somebody for the first time, that we will go to them and we will notify them and advise them on what the law is. And they sign a document to the fact that they understand that they have to have a charter and license to operate. Then we will call you back. If you call it in, we'll call you back and say, we've notified you. If you see them again, collect the same information, we'll go get an arrest warrant. In fact, we're working on one in Memphis right now where we're fixing to arrest a company that has been duly notified. Believe me, has been duly notified that they need a charter and license to operate. And they just simply ignore it. So we're going to see if the judge can make them come around when we have.
David, can I ask a question?
Absolutely, sir.
I used to be really irritated to turn the guys in, but after I turn them in, I've had some repercussions. Those people coming back and fussing at me. I had one to threaten me. Well, now I'm very unlikely to turn somebody in, and it's because of problems I've had in the past. I want to know, why is it that if we turn somebody in, that it has to be made public record, or how is it that they find out? And then
I'm not sure. We don't release the name. Who, gave us the information. And how they get that information, I'm not sure. But we try to protect the identity of the person that has submitted that information to us. I'm sorry that's happened to you, and I'm not sure how that has occurred. Now, that's where, if we specifically do that, if the person that turned it in says that I don't want my name involved, then, but if they don't say that, then, it may appear in the report. So if you don't want your name attached to that information being turned in, then you simply just need to tell the inspector that, and we'll list it as anonymous.
Well, this last year I pulled into McDonald's and here's a guy that's got, he's got a tank on his trailer, he's got on his mower, he's got a boom, he's got multiple things. I copied all the information down. But whenever I thought about all the repercussions I've had, I was fine with just didn't do nothing. But I don't mind doing it, but then I don't want them chewing and fussing at me, because especially after hours and on Saturday, that's been my one thing. I don't have any problems with being registered and all the things we go through to be chartered, bonded, and all that stuff, no problem. But we have gobs and gobs of people that are legal operators, and a lot of them will purposely wait till after 5 o'clock when there's no most you guys might be working. And if you go around Alamo and that area, there's a bunch of them works on Saturday. Well, I can help, but I don't want problems after I turn people in.
And when we get information as such as that there are multiple companies that we have worked on Saturdays. But understand that if you're looking at a larger geographical area, I'm having to have a man drive around in a truck through neighborhoods and hopefully find somebody. If we have a specific address, you know, understand that these are criminal. I can't go, the Department of Agriculture can't take them to an administrative hearing. I have to go criminally with these cases, meaning that I have to have sufficient evidence to prove the case. And that means that I've got to also have cooperation from the homeowner where the application was done. And if the homeowner will not testify in court that they paid them to do a job on, make a pesticide application, it's pretty tough. Now, when we actually come upon somebody that's applying a pesticide, then we take a sample out of the tank and we have it analyzed. Or if they refuse to give us a sample out of the tank, we take a soil sample out of the yard and have it analyzed. Take photographs of them in the actual application. Pretty much we've got to catch them in the act, or either I have to have documentation from the person that purchased that in their testimony in order to go to court. You've been in law enforcement, you understand that. So, it's a more difficult situation than one might think. But it's not that we're not out there trying to stop these folks, because we are. And we depend upon y'all to help us do that.
Well, I'll hit you, but I don't help on calls.
Not a problem. All you've got to do is say, you've got to tell the inspector that you want to remain anonymous.
I actually had one guy tell me he gets you.
Well, sorry about that, but the other thing you have to understand is that even if we pull up to McDonald's and he's got a tank on his truck and a boom on his sprayer, unless he's actually applying the pesticide, he's not in violation of the law. Yes?
So there's no need for us to call you if you see a truck driving down the road with a 200-gallon rig and 5 backpacks.
No, I'm not saying that there's not any reason to call us there, because we can certainly go notify those folks. But in order for us to prosecute, I've got to actually document an act that they've made. I can't prosecute him on the fact that he's got the equipment, or even the chemical. He's got to be in the act of doing it.
Let me turn around. I don't mind if you say that's what you do. If you've got to see it, I've got a good phone that takes good videos and good pictures. Is that evidence?
Well, the problem with that is I could go to court. You got a picture of me out there spraying the yard. I could go to court and he could say it's just fertilizer, and I couldn't prove it any other way.
All right, that's fine.
I've got a quick question along that line. As the LHA license gets bigger and more people are doing that, is the same regulations that apply to these guys? They are trying to make
Absolutely, they do. Same ones apply. If you know somebody that's applying Roundup, then let us know and we'll go visit with them. We'll certainly go, and then we'll recontact you and let you know that we've done so. All right. The WEC is the right-of-way, folks. You can see, you know, the number of inspections that we did there and such. Down the bottom kind of gives you, we did 144 inspections total and 51 violations in 2012. 2011, the bottom, that just kind of compares to it a little. This is kind of how you compare to the rest. You know, we do lots of things. Not only do we regulate the pesticide industry from the manufacturer all the way through to the end user, we also do inspections on feed, seed, fertilizer, anhydrous ammonia, and lime. My inspectors have to take samples regularly every month on all those products to do quality control, to make sure that the triple 15 that you're getting is actually triple 15. And we go around to all the dealers and we collect samples. We collect, you know, lime samples the same, make sure seed is in date, that it has the proper labeling on it. So we got lots of hats that we wear during the year. These are all the different categories that we regulate, and it kind of shows you the one in green and purple there is your industry compared to at the top, like would be the ag industry. And STRU would be the termite folks. That kind of shows you how you compare to those folks. Okay, told you we talked about the violations that we did find. And fortunately, a lot of times we'll find licensed and chartered companies out there, and they'll send technicians out there that are not certified yet. And that is a violation. If you have someone that's not certified yet, works for your company, they have to be in the presence of one that is certified or licensed in order to operate, in order to apply pesticide. We talked about the non-valid license because its certification expired. You can see that the record keeping probably is the biggest violation that we have, but 10, it's not a whole lot. I mean, y'all are doing a pretty good job. Label use violations. We had 11 of those in that period of time. And that was for exceeding the label rate or an off-target drift. And off-target drifts don't happen nearly as much in the lawn care business as they do in the ag business. You're not applying with airplanes or with 120-foot booms. And exceeding the label rate really comes in the fact that you don't know the area that you're treating. What I see the most when I go out and we go out and we look at people actually applying yards and they got marker dye in there, all that technician knows is he's out here, he's going to make the yard blue. He has a clue as how many square feet that he's treating in that yard. Now, as a company owner, I guess that could, there's a lot of consequences to that. If he puts out not enough of the herbicide or insecticide that he's supposed to put out, then you don't get the control you need. If he puts out more, you might get damage to the yard, or it's absolutely costing you more money in chemical that you don't need to be spending that money on. And there's where the biggest problem we have with exceeding the label rate comes is because they just don't know the area that to treat. Not only that, and I know it's harder to calibrate because you're out there walking, spraying. Well, at 8 o'clock in the morning, the guy feels good, he's out there, it's good and cool, and boy, he's going to town, right? Well, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's 100 degrees, and he's done a bunch of yards that day, and he ain't walking near as fast. And so it's not like a spray coop. With these spray coops we have in the ag industry now, they got computers on it. As long as you drive between 5 miles an hour and 15 miles an hour, it's going to put the same rate out. But you ain't got a computer on you when you go to walking. and that rate changes. Guys, this is no charter. If you have a printed advertisement, that's a business card or whatever, you have to have your charter number according to the law in that ad. You have a newspaper ad, yellow pages ad, business card, your charter number has to appear in your ad. And like I said, we didn't, most of it did. We didn't have 3 that did. Here's all the things that we do require in the record. Of course, the application date, the application address, the applicator name, and the PIN number. And we'll talk about those 2 things a little bit more. Target site, when you applied it, the pest you were after, the pesticide you used, the use dilution volume, the application rate, and the use dilution percentage. And in your industry, we don't really ask you, we're not actually looking for a 0.1% use dilution. In the structural industry, all the labels are geared that way. If you're in general pest control or termite control, it'll say mix so many ounces and so many gallons of water to make a 0.01% use dilution. But you're not going to see that in a herbicide label. You're not going to see that in any product that's in the ag or in the lawn care business. So what we're actually looking for is the amount of concentrate that you put in so many gallons of water, in so many gallons of water to the acre. As long as we have those components, if we want to figure a use dilution percentage, we can. This is the most common violation that probably, one of the most common violations that we find is that the applicator name is not there. It'll say JR. Well, okay, who's JR? Well, maybe John Ross, but I don't know it's John Ross. You know, it's a first name and a last name. And it's also, they have to have their certification PIN number on that, with their name. So, you know, some of the companies that are smaller, that only have 1 or 2 applicators, they just list the applicator name, put their PIN number out there to the side of it, and the applicator uses that same ticket, he'll just check off which one he is. It's already on there, you don't have to worry about putting it on there. That's a pretty good idea. I mean, if you've got 20 employees, it might be hard to do that. But that's what we're looking for, a full name and certification PIN number that we issue to that applicator. Use rate applied. Typically what we see on the record is the label rate. You'll list the label rate on your record, but that's not the actual rate that you apply. Here's an example. This came right out of an application record we looked at. The label rate is 32 ounces and 80 gallons of water per acre. Okay? This is the rate recorded in the application record. And that record that was presented to us, that's what they said they applied. Okay? In the record it said they treated 2,500 square feet and they used 30 gallons. Okay? Well, if 30 gallons on 2,500 square feet is actually 52 gallons to the acre, not 80 gallons to the acre. That 80 gallons to the acre may have been your goal to apply, but it wasn't the actual application rate that you applied. Again, the same way with the concentrate, you applied 21 ounces to the acre and not 32. And that, again, it comes from not knowing the area that you're treating, the size of the area. You can't apply the correct amount unless you know the area. That's part of the component of it. You can't know that you're applying the correct amount without the area. Okay, let's talk about this subject. And thanks to Kenny Crenshaw back here with Herm Systems, he and one of my former inspectors, Mark Stewart, who works for Drexel Chemical Company, in the last few weeks went to Washington, D.C. and sat down with the EPA and actually got 2 hours of their time, which is amazing, talking about MSMA and the cancellation of MSMA. And that's one of the best products we got. And I just kind of want to give you what the status of MSMA is and DSMA is right now. There are restrictions right now for you cannot apply it to residential commercial lawns Currently, you can do side farms, golf courses, and highway right-of-ways. And as long as you have, let me back up, you can do it on residential lawn if you have it in the old label until the end of this year. After the end of this year, even though the label may say you can use it on a residential lawn, you cannot. Am I clear there? If you've got an old jug that has the old label on it and it says residential lawns, you can still use it to the end of this year. When it comes January 1, 2014, even though it says residential lawns on the label, you cannot use it on a residential lawn without being in violation of the law. Now, they had to stop manufacturing, label language in 2000, 2008, I forget now. But they had to stop that manufacturing of the label in residential lawns. So what they're trying to do is cleanse the market of all the products out there that has residential lawns on the label. EPA, however, has extended the registration for golf courses, side farms, and highway right-of-ways for 3 years or maybe more. And as of September the 14th, 2012, that's kind of when that extension went into effect. And according to Kenny, in the meeting that they had here recently, there will be a supplemental label that comes out for MSMA that will kind of more clearly define this extension period. But there are some restrictions if you use MSMA that will be on the label. And on golf courses, it means that you can do spot treatments only, and that's 100 square feet per spot, and it can't exceed, your total application can't exceed more than 25% of the golf course. And you can only do one broadcast treatment if it's a newly constructed treatment. Side farms, only 2 broadcast treatments per year, 25-foot buffer zone for many bodies of water. Highway right-of-ways, only 2 broadcast applications per year, and you got to be 25 feet away from any water. Okay, and this is probably something that some of you don't know. Simazine, there are setbacks on Simazine, and that's used widely in the industry. But these have been on the label since 2008. It's the same restrictions that are on the atrazine label. Kind of running short of time. They will appear in the label on your environmental hazards section of your label. It says that you can't mix or blow within 50 feet of a well or sinkhole. You can't mix clean equipment within 50 feet of an intermittent stream, river, lake, and such. You know, this is pretty much, this landscape at the bottom is pretty much a lot of what we see, especially in cities. You couldn't use Simazine there because of that water. You're not going to stay, you can't stay 200 feet away from that. You can't apply directly to water with it. So I encourage you to look at your Simazine labels and make sure that where you're using it, you can be using it. Now, the other thing I want you to know real quickly is that as an industry, you need to be following bills that come up on the legislature. And it's really easy to do that. And what you got to do is just Google tn.gov, and it'll bring up our State of Tennessee webpage, and then go to legislative bill search. Then you put in a keyword. If you want to, and that keyword can be lawn care. You put that keyword in there, lawn care, it'll bring up any bill that's been submitted that has to do with lawn care. Believe me, you need to be looking, because there are bills that are submitted by legislators that hadn't have a clue about your industry, and they don't have a clue about what the effects it'll have on your industry. They're just trying to please somebody that's their constituent. Here's all our numbers. My cell phone up there at the very top, my cell phone is surgically implanted. It works Saturdays and Sundays. And it works 7/24. It works actually at 3 a.m. in the morning, because I do get calls at 3 a.m. in the morning. So please call us if you have any questions or not. Okay?